Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's begin as always by taking a couple more deep breaths. So breathe in and let it go. Another deep breath in and let go. One more deep breath in. Breathe in and let go. And so, as you may or may not know, as we've been walking through the year of 2022, which, my goodness, we've almost done already, we've been using this year as we've been calling our year of inner and outer permaculture. And for those of you who've been here all year long, each month we've been using one of the principles of regenerative agriculture, also known as permaculture, as our month's themes. And we've been exploring these month by month as we've gone along. And so this month, the principle we're going to be exploring is catch and store energy. Right? Last month was use and value renewables. This month is catch and store energy. And also, one of the things that we do as we've been going through the year is we've been observing the turn of the seasons. And so we had our ancestor Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, Halloween celebration ceremony last week. We've now entered what we're calling our season of harvest. And this is going to take us through into the turn of winter in about 6 weeks. And so as we step into the season of harvest, we have this theme, catch and store energy. Right, which is really kind of all about that harvest time of year. How are we harvesting all that has been supporting us, all the energy that we're going to need for the sustenance to take us through wintertime, right? Because think about our ancestors who may have lived without the modern convenience of having anything you want, anytime, ever, always. And as we step into the winter, it can feel like a time of scarcity. Right? And so the harvest time is this powerful time of really reaping all that you've sown in the last year, really harvesting the benefits and the bounty of all of the energy and all the work that's gone up until now, because whatever's available now has to carry us through the next season until spring comes around when things start to become available to us again. And as we've been moving into this theme, one of the things that I've really been thinking about in this idea of catching and storing energy is really about how each one of us cultivate our own energy to be available for what we need to be available for, right? Because I know that so many of us in this room and so many people in our communities feel like we are fighting for what is right, standing up for what's important, making our voice known, getting our vote out there, standing up for what's important, and there's so much that needs our attention, right? And so often, I think many of us put the issues first, put the work that needs to be done first, put the support that we have to give other people first. The problem with that is, if I put everything else first, am I paying attention to the actual energy cultivation that I need in order to support and show up for all the things that the world or my family or community needs of me, right? And I know that in activist circles, burnout is a real thing. For ministers, burnout is a real thing, right? Because we're called to show up for other people, to show up for the world, and all the while, our energy is getting depleted in the process. And I don't know about you, but the world that we live in, for me, just seems to be pulling my energy away from me often. And I have to recognize that it's important for me to pull it back in. So, funny story. In my synthesis retreat, which was a couple weeks ago with my synthesis chapter 4 class, how many of you have taken a synthesis class up until this point? A number of you. In synthesis, I invite everyone to have a project. It's the one most important thing for you to be working on that's your main focus all as you go through all of our coursework. And I just claimed a new project a couple weeks ago, because my project has all been about my output. It's been the development of my ministry. It's been stepping into this place here. And I started to feel that energy drain. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to put me first. I claimed a project of self-care. That self-care is my number one most important thing for me to focus on so that I can then take care of all the other things that I'm here to participate in and take care of. Right. So I'm going. I facilitate this retreat. We had this big Sunday here. I claim this project. Self-care is my number one purpose right now. 48 hours later, I was laid out on the couch with a respiratory virus. It's like I stated my intention, and the universe rose up to say, Elisha, thou shalt stay in the house for 10 days and lay on the couch for a week and do nothing but watch Netflix and Hulu and everything else. But it's always comical to me when we state an intention that I need to put myself first. And then I had no other choice but to do that, right? And so I'm just now starting to feel like I have my energy coming back. And that was kind of a big wake-up call for me. And maybe it could be for all of us that if we don't put ourselves first, if we put all the things that need our attention before taking care of ourselves, guess what? You're going to get depleted, right? And when we were talking about renewable energy in the last month, one of the things that we talked about was, is the life that you are living currently, does it feel sustainable? And what I mean by sustainable is, if you keep doing what you're doing the way that you're doing it, could you keep doing it? Right? And for some of us, for many of us, I think we have to take that time and stop and check in. And really ask, what does it look like to put myself first, not in a selfish way, but in a way that allows me to actually show up to the world in a bigger way? Right? Because I know that the world needs every single one of us to show up to the things that we're passionate about, to stand up for the things that are important for us, to speak out when our voice is needed to be heard. But we have to have a solid grounding in ourselves so that all that then comes back at us doesn't take our energy away. You know, and think for yourself for a moment. What are the things that you do that really, truly fill you up? That really make you feel alive? That really allow you to feel connected with yourself and your sense of purpose and your excitement for the world that you're here to bring? You know, I've been in a number of conversations with people recently who are coming to this realization and saying, you know what, I need to step back from a few of the things that I'm doing because I actually have to learn how to put myself first, and that's going to take some time, right? And I'm an overcommitter. I don't know about you. And it's one of the things I'm learning how to regulate, right? But in order to do that, we have to learn how to listen to ourselves. And in order to learn how to listen to ourselves, guess what? We have to stop doing everything every once in a while and get still. And get really clear about what's calling us internally. Because your body, your intuition, your heart, your higher wisdom knows what you need. And how often do you find yourself feeling in your gut what you know you need to do, and then choosing what you think you should do instead? Anyone ever done that? Okay, just checking. I was like, you know, and so we come to places like this, right? You come here every week to be in the container of community. Because one of the other things about catching and storing the energy that we need is we cannot cultivate it all ourselves. That we have to have people to surround us, to hold us, to lift us up, to remind us of what we're doing, to share a vision with us so that we can be inspired to do something about what it is that we feel needs to shift or change. But if I'm just alone doing the work by myself, it's really easy to get discouraged. It's really easy to start to see the problems. It's really easy to get overwhelmed. But when you have a prayer partner, or you reach out to one of our practitioners, or you come into this community and be here on Sunday and get the message and the music, there's an opportunity to be uplifted, to have your energy brought back to you, to have your inspiration reawakened so that you can feel the activation of your purpose inside of yourself. Right? Because if we're just fighting against all the time, we're going to wear down, we're going to get exhausted, and we're not going to make the change that we want to make. It's when we're inspired and excited and lit up and on fire that we spread change, that our ideas become infectious, that the possibilities show up in front of us, right? Because you've heard us say 1,000 times, right? The mind that creates a problem is not the mind that can solve it, right? Einstein told us this. And that when we focus on a problem, when we get wrapped up in fear, guess what, friends? Your brain shuts down. You cannot see out of a particular moment. It's when we are expanded, it's when we're inspired, it's when we're uplifted that our mind has the ability to see choices that we didn't see before. You know, I'm someone who has dealt with depression much of my life. Depression and anxiety have been a constant thing I've gotten to play with over my life experience. And one of the things I know about depression is that one of the symptoms of depression is the lack of an ability to see choices. Right? When the brain gets into shutdown, when we get locked into a certain perspective, it's really hard to see out of that. Right? And that's why sometimes, for some people, depression can lead to suicide. Because we can't see a way out of where we are. We can't see that there's another choice. And so for me, my life's practice as a matter of survival has been about teaching myself to continuously lift my mind to a different place, to reach out and ask for the support that I need, to do the spiritual, mental practices, to keep my mind aligned with a higher purpose, so that choice, so that possibility, so that ideas can continue to flow and not get locked in a way that makes me feel like there's no way out, right? And we are living in circumstances nationally and globally that can be really easy for us to feel like there's no way out of, like we're stuck in a situation. And we have to be a people who are willing to open our minds to possibility, to choose and perpetuate a vision or an idea of what's possible that is so captivating, that is so invigorating, that it inspires us to continuously live into it in everything that we do. We have to catch the energy of a vision and then allow it to live in us. Because if we don't, we can get real stuck. And it's awfully muddy out there. And we need to learn how to walk and rise above it. Right? Each one of us can learn how to rise above the circumstances and walk on water, so to speak. Right? We can either drown, we can learn how to swim. Maybe some of us are just treading water, keeping our head just barely above. But we as a community can support each other to lift up out of that space and start to move into a higher plane of existence and awareness. So remember that there is an infinite source of energy that we are all connected to. It is our very breath. You hear me say often in my spiritual mind treatments, there is a power for good in this universe greater than we are. When we take a deep breath in, say, remember, you are being breathed by something greater than yourself. That there is a life force, that there is an energy that is filled with possibility. That when we breathe into that, when we get still and allow ourselves to contact the truth of who we really are, that each one of us is the universe, that each one of us is life, that each one of us is evolution unfolding through our choice, we can tap into that infinitely renewable source of energy. But we have to return to it. We have to give space for it to grow in us. You know, a couple weeks ago, I used the analogy of your cell phone. How many of you have a smartphone or something like that? Some of you? Oh, I thought we got more than I expected. Yeah. You know, that how often do you let the battery just die on that thing? Not very often, do you? Yeah, when it starts to get low, it changes color, it starts blinking at you, the little thing can close, you know, but you have to plug it in, right? We have to do the same for ourselves. Notice when your battery starts to get low and do what is important for you to not unplug, but plug yourself into that source of energy, but maybe unplug from your situations, from your circumstances, right? To get room in your mind to see something different. But if we're just in perpetual motion, we can't always see the options that are in front of us. We actually have to stop and look around. A friend of mine years ago was in first responder training for emergency support. And one of the first lessons they learned is when you run into an emergency, don't just do something, stand there. Because the person who just rushes in is going to make a mistake, is not going to notice the thing that's the most important. The person who walks into the situation and then stops, pauses, and assesses the scene, looks around and says, who or what needs my attention first, and then moving to the appropriate place. That person is going to make a greater difference than the one who just runs in full bore and just runs into the first thing that they see. Right? We all have to learn, no matter how emergency the situation appears to be out there, we all have to learn that we have to be the ones who are willing to pause, breathe, get still, look around, and then figure out where we're needed. But it has to start with the willingness to get still and tap into that infinite source of energy that we all have access to. But there's a whole lot of people in the world who don't know that they have access to that energy and just keep moving and moving and moving and moving, depleting themselves and the world around them. We want to become a people who are renewable, who are energized, who are sustainable, and who are bringing about a greater vision of what's possible and being those who reveal that truth everywhere we go. So we're going to work on that little by little, week by week, day by day. Take a deep breath in and let go. Take another deep breath and let that go. And breathe in again. And so as we breathe, I invite each one of us to just for a moment contemplate this idea that there is something greater than you are that is breathing your body. That it's not your conscious mind who is breathing, that there is an unconscious greater piece of us that is breathing our bodies, beating our hearts. And I believe that there is indeed one seamless presence that is living and breathing everyone and everything. That there is an infinite source of all energy, of all possibility, and of all of life. I choose to call it God. Some of us might just call it the universe, or our higher self, or consciousness, or just energy. But let us recognize here and now that each one of us has access to that infinite source of all energy. That it is the truth of who we are. But we must dedicate ourselves to returning to that awareness, to practicing opening ourselves up to that infinite source so that we can be sourced and resourced for all that we need to do, for all that we feel called to do, for all that is ours to stand for in the world. But each one of us must first learn to put ourselves first for the purpose of being able to show up in a sustainable way, for the purpose of being able to be a greater impact in the world. Because what I know is that there is a vision of a world that works for everyone, that is calling us. There is a possible future that leads to our thriving, but we have to choose it. We have to create it. We have to build it, which means we're going to need a whole lot of energy to do what needs to be done. And so let each one of us right here and right now commit to ourselves, to taking the time to recharge, to regenerate, to ground ourselves and connect to the higher truth of who we are, that each one of us is connected to the infinite, that each one of us is filled with the possible, and that each one of us is the place when we choose to be, where evolution unfolds into reality. And so I just speak a word of gratitude for this community of Center for Spiritual Living Santa Cruz and for everyone and everything that makes this place what it is, because we are emerging into our greater yet to be. that we are building a template here on this land of what a world that works for everyone could look like. As we begin to develop our gardens and grow food, to cultivate this sense of community, to create a place where each person can express their spiritual magnificence and learn how to thrive. Let us do this work together. And so I just remember once again that there is indeed a power for good in this universe so much greater than we are, and yet it is who we are, breathing us. Let us remember that there is more to each one of us than we can see, and that we are sourced and resourced by the infinite source of all things. Let us remember that today. And so it is.